Matthew 24, verse 23. If anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there, don't believe. For false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the chosen ones. Your translation may even say, even the very elect. That little word right there, if possible, meaning that we're not going to be deceived for those of us who are the chosen ones. He says, see, I have forewarned you. So if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Or look, he is in the inner rooms, meaning in their temples, do not believe. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines to the west, so also shall the coming of the Son of Adam be. So he's letting us know beforehand, before it even happens, they're going to fake a second coming of the Messiah. They're going to make it seem as though the Messiah has come back. They may even have him looking like he's floating down out of the sky and showing this being like they capture it on CNN or on MSNBC or Fox News. They're like, breaking news. We have an image of what looks like a being that's coming out of the clouds and that's descending to the Mount of Olives. Notice that not every eye shall see it. They have to use CNN, MSNBC, Fox News to mimic the second coming. The Messiah says, no, when I come, it's going to be like lightning. As it flashes in the east, when you ever see a lightning storm and the clouds are all around at night and you see that it's dark, but all of a sudden the lightning is striking and it just flashes the whole sky everywhere. Everybody sees it that's in that vicinity of where the lightning is. He says it's going to be like that from the east to the west, meaning the whole earth is going to be lit up, flashes of light, the brightness of his coming. Every eye shall see. Every eye shall see him coming back. It's not going to be some secret rapture. It's not going to be only those who can see it through CNN or their news broadcast. No, don't believe that. Because he's going to come with all lying signs and wonders. Believe it, because we've been told. He forewarned us. And I believe, Ali Shaba, Elizabeth, I believe that's your dream. I believe that it is the second coming, the fake second coming of this Messiah-like figure of Satan doing this. How this happens, we right now don't know, but we know they have the technology to do it. They're going to make it seem like the Messiah has returned. Is it the Anunnakis? Is it the fallen ones, the Nephilim? The fallen angels? Are they the ones? All we know is it's going to happen. Don't believe it. Because we're the chosen ones. Exactly. The voice you heard said not to believe it. Exactly. Linda, we don't have much time left. We really don't. None of us can predict the day or the hour, but he told us that we will know it even at the very doors. We will see these signs. This is why he tells us what's going to happen before it happens. So let me say this. Because I believe in prophecy, I've studied prophecy, and I'm not the only one who studied prophecy. We're told in the book of Hosea, chapter 6. In fact, let me read it. Had to drink some water real quick. All this talking dries the mouth out. Hold on one second, you guys. Okay, let's go to Hosea chapter 6. Hosea, for those of you who don't know how it's spelled, chapter 6, verse 1. Come, Let us turn back to Yahuwah. Notice that. As we're doing right now, let us return back to Yahuwah. This is to repent. Go back to the ancient ways, the ancient path. For he has torn, but he does heal us, meaning that he's disciplined us. He has stricken, but he binds us up. Notice here, verse 2. After 2 days, he shall revive us. On the 3rd day, he shall raise us up, so that we live before him. So let us pursue to know Yahuwah. His going forth is as certain as the morning, and he comes to us like the rain, like the latter rain, watering the earth. Let's go back to verse 2. Notice here it says, after 2 days. What's after 2 days? What's after 2 days? What's after 2 days? Anyone? What's after 2 days? It's not a trick question. There is revival, yes. Exactly. After 2,000 years, Bo. Yes, exactly, Michelle. Resurrection, the return. Yes, he shall revive us. So after 2 days or 2,000 years, he is going to revive us or resurrect us. And what's after 2 days? The 3rd day. So he says, on the 3rd day, which is speaking of the same thing, he shall raise us up out of the grave so that we live before him. Yes, Burnett, the 3rd day. He's going to resurrect us. This in itself, this prophecy, when did this 2,000 years begin? It began when he came here. Have you ever noticed our Messiah, it says what? Let me take you now here to Matthew. I want you guys to see something. Matthew chapter 4, verse 2. And having fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. Okay? 40 days and 40 nights. Notice the number 40. He was fasting. Now let's go to the book of Acts. Book of Acts chapter 1. The first account I made, O Theophilus, of all that Yahusha began both to do and to teach until the day when he was taken up, after giving instructions through the set-apart Spirit to the emissaries, that is, to the apostles, whom he had chosen, to whom he also presented himself alive after his suffering by many infallible proofs, being seen by them for 40 days, speaking concerning the kingdom of Elohim. Why 40? This was after his resurrection. There was many infallible proofs. So what am I saying to you? What are we being told? We have 40 days, the beginning of his earthly ministry. We have 40 days. I should have put an S there. At the end of his ministry. In between that time was 3.5 years. This was his ministry for 3.5 years. I want you guys to follow me. 40 days and 40 nights. Remember, he was immersed by John, and then he went out into the wilderness to be tempted by Satan for 40 days and 40 nights. He works for 3.5 years, and after his resurrection, at the completion of his ministry, he was seen for 40 days. This 40 days here at the beginning shows that the body, his body, the assembly, the believers, will be tempted by Satan for 40 Jubilee years. Or excuse me, 50, or excuse me, you're right. 40 Jubilee years, which is 50 years. Every Jubilee is a 50-year period. Let me show you what I mean. Let's go to Leviticus real quick. Leviticus 25. Didn't know we was going to go here today, but we're going here right now. Verse 8. This is Leviticus 25, chapter 25, verse 8. And you shall count 7 Sabbath of years for yourself, 7 times 7 years. And then the time of the 7 Shabbat, or Shabbatot, of years shall be to you 49 years. And you shall then sound a shofar sound on the 10th day of the 7th new month, on Yom HaKippurim, or the Day of Atonement. Cause a shofar to sound through all your land. Verse 10, and you shall set the 50th year set apart and proclaim a release throughout all the land to all its inhabitants. It is a Yobal. Yours will say a Jubilee for you. And each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you return to his clan, that is to your family. The 50th year is a Yobal, a Jubilee to you. Do not sow nor reap what grows of its own, nor gather from its unpruned vine. It is a Yobal. It is set apart to you. Eat from the field its crops. In the year of this Yobal, let each one of you return to his possession. And when you sell whatever your neighbor, or buy from the hand of your neighbor, do not exploit one another. According to the number of the years after the Yobal, you buy from your neighbor, and according to the number of the years of the crops he sells to you. According to the greater number of the years, you increase its price, or according to the fewer number of the years, you diminish its price, because he sells to you according to the number of the years of the crops. And you do not oppress one another, but you shall fear your Elohim, for I am Yahuwah, your mighty one. And you shall do my laws and keep my right rulings, and shall do them. And you shall dwell in the land in safety. So here we see during the Yobal year, it's the 50th year. Every 50 years, it is a release. You are to return to your family. Everyone is to return to their own people. This is going to happen. This is going to happen on the 40th Jubilee year. So now let's go back to what I wrote. I want you guys to see this. I want someone to do the math for me. 50 times 40. We're talking about 50 years of 40. What does that come out to? Let me see some answers. 50 times 40 gives you what? Exactly, Becky. Exactly, Ivy. 2,000. 2,000. So, what are we being told? From the day that the Messiah went into the wilderness, there is going to be 2,000 years of temptation on the body of the Messiah. So imagine, and I'm going to draw this line. Let me do this like this, make it easier for myself. And then I'm going to make another line. So here's one line, here's another line, here's this line, and here's another line. 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Between these two is 3.5 years, and between these two is 3.5 years. Do you guys see that so far? Okay. This one here has to do with temptation. We're being tempted. The body. This one here has to do with the resurrection of the body. So the first 40 days that was seen, these 40 days here, the beginning of his ministry, to the time that he was unalived, there was 3.5 years. This started off one 2,000 year period. This started another 2,000 year period. There's going to be an offset of 3.5 years here and 3.5 years here. This 3.5 years here is the Great Tribulation. There's going to be 2,000 years of temptation. And then now this part is the Great Tribulation. I'm just going to put GT. That's the 3.5 years right there. At the end of that Great Tribulation, the resurrection happens. Do you guys see the beauty of this? Do you see? So, let's just take the latest time that we have. CQ, you don't get what I'm saying? The Messiah was here, and they say that he was unalived, he was buried, and he was resurrected. Some say 30 AD. 2,000 years from 30 AD, and again, nobody knows the day or the hour. Okay, just remember that. If we add 2,000 years to 30 AD, that gives us 2030. We're right now at 2025. We don't have more than 5 years left. Do you see that now, CQ? We only have about 5 years left. And remember, the anti-Messiah is going to attack Yah's people for 3.5 years. That's the Great Tribulation. That's the Great Tribulation, 3.5 years, or 42 months, or 1,260 days. Has the Great Tribulation started yet? Nope. But it's getting ready to. We know when the abomination that causes desolation has been erected, we can start counting the days. We will know it to the exact day. But right now, we don't know the day. We don't know the day. This is why he says that he will not come upon us as a thief. This is why we see this all over the scriptures. Let me show you again. Let's go to Luke chapter 21. Yeah, we don't know the day. At least not yet, Cochada. But we're going to know it. We're going to know it, but not yet. Right now, it hasn't been revealed to us. When the countdown of the 1,260 days begin, then we know. And this is why we know what that day is when it starts. Notice what it says here in Luke chapter 21. We're going to read a little bit of this. Now, we just read earlier, Luke 21:24, about the falling, the true Jews falling by the sword, and they'll be led captive into all nations, okay? This is part of what we know as the transatlantic slave trade. And Jerusalem shall be trampled underfoot by the nations until the times of the nations are fulfilled. This is happening right now, and it's not fulfilled yet, but it's coming to an end. And then it says, and there shall be signs in the sun. That could be what we know as the eclipses that happened in 2017 and 2024. And there'll be signs also in the moon, all those blood moons, and in the stars. We see that also. And on the earth, anxiety of nations, meaning that they're going to war with each other. And bewilderment at the roaring of the seas. This is your hurricanes and your tsunamis, and then agitation. Men fainting from fear and the expectation of what is coming on the earth. This, I believe, is what we're seeing now with the UAPs and the UFOs, and it's just starting. It's just starting. For their powers of the heavens shall be shaken, and then they shall see the Son of Adam coming in the clouds. This is going to happen almost near the end, with the power and much esteem. Notice what it says here in verse 28. And when these matters, what matters? All the stuff that he gave as a list. Remember, they asked the question. The disciples had asked the question. They asked him saying, Teacher, but when shall this be? And what is the sign when this is about to take place? And he starts talking about, see that no one leads you astray, for many shall come in my name saying, I am, okay, Yah, and the time is near. Then do not go after them. Don't follow these fake, these pastors, these preachers, these teachers, these evangelists, like the Jonathan Kahns and all these other people, John Hagee and all these guys who are talking this mess and telling you, oh, the rapture is coming and all. No. All this stuff has to happen, fightings and unrest, and there's going to be all this stuff that's going to happen, but the end is not yet. Okay? But then it goes on and says here, it says, when you see these things begin to take place, look up, lift up your heads, because your redemption draws near. Your salvation, your gathering to him, is going to draw near. He spoke a parable to them. He says, look at the fig tree and all the trees, not just the fig tree, but all the trees, when they have already budded, observing it. You shall know for yourselves that summer is now near. So you also, when you see these matters take place, know that the kingdom of Elohim is near. Truly I say to you, this generation, he's saying that generation that sees all this stuff happen, they shall by no means pass away till all shall have taken place. The heaven and the earth shall pass away, but my words shall by no means pass away. Notice he says, my words shall by no means pass away. Doesn't this sound like Matthew chapter 5 when he says the same thing here about the law? Because remember, he is the word manifested in the flesh. What did he say there? Let me go back there so we can put this 2 and 2 together. For truly I say to you, till heaven and earth pass away, not one yah, one tittle shall by no means pass from the law till all be done. And he says the same thing here. Truly I say to you, this generation shall by no means pass away till all shall take place. He says, the heaven and the earth shall pass away, but my words shall by no means pass away. He is the Torah. He is the law. Again, he's from Genesis to Malachi because he spoke of it even through the prophets as they were moved by the Spirit. So he says, take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down by gluttony and drunkenness and worries of this life, and that day come on you suddenly. For it shall come as a snare on all those dwelling on the face of all the earth. Watch then. Notice that. Here's the commandment. Watch then at all times, not sometimes, but at all times, and pray that you be counted as one of the 144,000, worthy to escape all this that is about to take place and stand before the Son of Adam. Where are they going to be standing? As we know in Revelation chapter 14, on Mount Zion, which is in heaven. And he was teaching in the set apart place day, but at night he went out and stayed on Mount of Olives. So we see the same thing here, that we shall know that day. And he says this over and over. You look at it in Matthew 24. He says here, and we just read about how he says when they tell you that he's out there in the desert, don't believe it. If he's in the inner room, don't believe it. Okay. Then he talks about how he is going to come. They will all see him coming in the clouds. He says, and learn the parable of the fig tree. When its branches have already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these, know that he is near at the doors. You'll know it at the very doors. Truly I say to you, this generation shall by no means pass away until all this takes place. The heaven and the earth shall pass away, but my words shall by no means pass away. He says, but concerning that day and hour, no one knows, not even the messengers of the heavens, but my Father only. Why don't nobody know this? Because the countdown hasn't begun. That has been given over into the Father's hand. And when that day begins, the countdown goes. That's why he told us there'll be 1,260 days, or 3.5 years, or times and half a time, or 42 months, all meaning the same thing. This is why I'm sharing this with you here. We don't know when this is going to jump off. But if we take the latest amount of time that people have said that the Messiah was here and that he left was around 30 AD. Some people say 27 AD. So we know between 27 and 30 AD, we're in that era. It can't go past 2030. It's not going to go past 2030. 2,000 years have transpired by then. And he said that he was going to shorten those days lest no flesh be saved. No flesh be saved. And so that's why he has to do it. And this is why he is going to shorten those days. So this is why we have to watch. We have to prepare ourselves. We can't allow this stuff to come upon us as a thief. And this is why it says this. Even Shaul, aka Paul, knew this. In Thessalonians, 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, what does he say here? Let me prop this up. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 1. Now, brothers and sisters, as to the times and the seasons, you do not need to be written to. For you yourselves know very well that the day of Yahuwah comes as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. But you, brethren and sisters, are not in darkness, so that this day shall overtake you as a thief, meaning that you are caught off guard, unaware. For you are all sons of light and sons of the day, for we are not of the night nor of darkness. So then we should not sleep as others do, but we should watch and be sober. For those who sleep, sleep at night. Remember, he told us to watch. You can't be watching if you're sleeping. And those who get drunk are drunk at night. What do they drink? They drank the Kool-Aid. This ain't talking about drinking wine and drinking strong drink and you're drunk. It's talking about those who have fallen and they are following the woman, the harlot. They drank of her cup and they have been drunk by her golden cup. But we who are of the day should be sober, putting on the breastplate of belief and love and the helmet of expectation of deliverance, because Elohim did not appoint us to his wrath. I have to add, his wrath, not the wrath of Satan, because he does come down with great wrath, but we have not been appointed to Elohim's wrath, but to obtain deliverance through our master Yahusha the Messiah. Deliverance from what? The second death, the lake of fire. Okay? So that's what he's talking about here. And so he says the same thing to us in the book of Revelation about this time. Revelation 3:3. Remember then how you have received and heard what? The great news. And watch, there's that word again, and repent. That is to go back to the old ways, to the ancient path. If then you do not wake up, meaning that you're still sleeping like the five foolish virgins, I shall come upon you as a thief, and you shall not know at all what hour I come upon you. You see? We're not supposed to be caught off guard. This day that comes, we shall not be caught off guard. And this is why he tells us exactly in the book of Revelation. He doesn't give us these days for no reason. He tells us right here. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Elohim to be nourished there for 1,260 days. Why would he tell us the exact amount of days? Because he doesn't want us to be caught off guard. And when does this day start? I'll show you. And there came to be fighting in the heaven. Michael and his messengers, the angels, fought against the dragon. And the dragon and his messengers, his angels, fought, but they were not strong enough, nor was place found for them in the heaven any longer. Why? Because the great tribulation is getting ready to start. Because that dragon, the great dragon, was thrown out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who leads all the world astray. He lied to the whole world, and he's done a great job masterfully with the religion called Christianity. He was thrown to the earth. He's not thrown to the earth yet. This is getting ready to happen. When this happens, this starts to tick. This happens. This day starts. How do we know when that day starts? You'll see as we continue to read. So he's thrown to the earth, and his angels were thrown out with him. So now they're earthbound. They're earthbound. Their wings, proverbially saying or symbolically saying, their wings have been plucked. They can't leave the earth anymore. They're stuck on the earth. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now have come the deliverance or salvation and the power of the reign of our mighty one, our Elohim, and the authority or the power of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brethren, that's Satan, who accused them before Elohim day and night, has been thrown down. Where has he been thrown down to? He's been thrown down to the earth. Why? Because he's getting ready to start his great wrath. You'll see that here in a second. And they overcame him, meaning Satan, because of the blood of the Lamb and because of the word of their witness or their testimony. And they did not love their lives to the death. This starts the great tribulation because he's going to start unaliving us. Because of this, rejoice, O Shamaim, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has come down to you, having great wrath. This is the great tribulation, knowing that he has a little time. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown to the earth, he persecuted the woman. That's when this count starts, 1,260 days, because he's going to go looking for her. So he goes to persecute the woman who gave birth to the male child. And we know who the male child is. That's our Messiah. This is showing you way back in history when he first came. And the woman was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly into the wilderness to her place where she is nourished for a time, times, and half a time. Again, 1,260 days or 3.5 years, 42 months. From the presence of the serpent. When does this happen from the presence of the serpent? When he is thrown down to the earth, when he's earthbound. That starts off or kicks off the counting of the 1,260 days, so that this day when he comes does not come upon us as a thief, because we now know the count has begun. The countdown has started. And so it talks about how out of his mouth of the serpent spewed this like what was like a river of water after the woman. We know the woman to be the 144,000 households, to cause her to be swept away by the river. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed up the river, which the dragon spewed out of his mouth, which I believe is to be the military that he has control through the anti-Messiah to try to come after those of us who are of the 144,000. Not saying that I am or that you are, but if you are, he's going to be trying to come after you. It says, and the dragon was enraged with the woman. Okay, but he can't find the woman because the woman has been taken. What was she taken to? I looked and saw the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 having the Father's name written upon their heads. But so now we see here, it says that they were redeemed from the earth. Okay, here it says, and no one was able to learn about this song except 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. So they were taken. That's the wings here that we see. It says that she was given 2 wings of a great eagle to fly into the wilderness. That wilderness I showed you guys before is Mount Zion. Zion means wilderness. You can look that up for yourself in the Strong's Concordance. So she is taken to heaven. But it talks about here, as we started off earlier, when we came on earlier today, that he goes after to wage war against us who keep the commandments of Elohim, the Old Testament, and who have the testimony or the witness of Yahusha, the New Testament. We keep both of these. And so we see that the time is going to come when this is going to happen. And remember, he has authority for 42 months. Again, 1,260 days. If you multiply 42 by 30, you get exactly 1,260. Because each month, according to the book of Enoch and according to the book of Jubilees and according to the book of Daniel, and now here in the book of Revelation, we know that 42 months is equivalent to 1,260 days, because each month has a 30-day period, which is 3.5 years. 42 months is 3.5 years. And so this brings us back to what we're seeing here. This is why it's not by accident that the Messiah was tempted for 40 days to begin his ministry, letting us know there'll be a 2,000-year history of his body, that is us, being tempted by Satan until the great tribulation happens. And there was a 3.5 year gap of his ministry, which is the same work that we're going to be doing here. Greater works than these shall we do. He did all these works in this 3.5 year period. Greater works shall we do in this 3.5 year period. Whatever we loose on earth shall be loosed from heaven. Whatever we bound on earth shall be bound in heaven. And then he was seen after 3.5 years once he was resurrected from the grave, which lets you know there'll be 2040 or 40 Jubilee year periods before the resurrection of the body. And we will be resurrected. And that's why I showed you Hosea chapter 6, verses 1 and 2. After 2 days he shall revive us, and on the 3rd day we shall live in his sight. It all corresponds with one another. It all comes together. I hope that makes sense to all of you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And this is why, again, I will be preaching this tomorrow. Not the same message, but some of it will be the same. What I normally preach and teach and share to our brothers and sisters of the Christian faith. If you have anybody, your friends or family or anyone, and they're willing to hear tomorrow, that's the message that I try to bring out every first day of the week on the Sunday, so that our brothers and sisters will wake up. And so as I started this message earlier today, and what they're getting ready to do with this anti-Christian bill about those who speak against Christianity, this is what's getting ready to happen right here. They're getting ready to come at us. They're getting ready to come at us. They're not going after those Christians. They're getting protected. They're going to come after us for speaking against the Christians. Who would have seen this coming? I surely didn't. I didn't see it coming in this direction. I didn't know that President Trump was going to sign a bill a few days ago and say, here I am, and this is what we're going to do because people are coming after Christians. But here we see why it's going to happen. This is getting ready to go down. Who is that? Sister Jackie, you got jokes. You know I would probably try to do it too. I probably really would. But yeah, this is what's getting ready to happen, family. It is getting ready to go down. Humbly, don't be scared. Abba has not given us a spirit of fear. He's given us this sound mind. We are to think rationally. We are to believe, and this is what it means to believe in the Messiah. He says, what? Do not fear those who can kill the body and cannot kill the soul. If anything, we're to fear him who can do both, and that's because of disobedience. What was the last scripture you said you wrap it up? Lindsay, can you remind me? Because sometimes when I'm speaking, I don't quite recall what I am saying. I just speak as I'm being moved. So I don't know exactly what it is that you're speaking of. What about the 1,000 year the serpent is allowed to reign, brother? Okay, Pamela, I will answer that here in a second. You're going to talk about who is the Messiah. Oh yes, CQ, I'm definitely doing that. I haven't wrapped it up yet. This is just a halfway point. I'm just kidding. So real quick before we change subjects, the 1,000 year reign, Revelation chapter 20. Revelation 20, it talks about how the first resurrection has happened. Okay, exactly what we're talking about right now, about this whole thing about the death penalty coming back and all this stuff, right? Verse 4 of chapter 20 says, "And I saw thrones, and they who sat on them, and judgment was given to them, and the lives of those who had been beheaded because of the witness or testimony they bore to Yahusha, that is, I am is salvation, and because of the word of Elohim," again, the Old Testament, "and who did not worship the beast nor his image, and did not receive his mark on their foreheads or upon their hands. And they lived and reigned with the Messiah for 1,000 years. This is the seventh day, or the seventh millennium." And it says, "And the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were ended." This is the first resurrection. So who were the rest of the dead? Those people who did not make the first resurrection. Those who are waiting in Sheol, in the grave, where the rich man was, that Lazarus was on the other side of that gulf at the time. They're being tormented right now. They're alive right now, wherever that location is here in the belly of the earth. There's a place where they're being tormented, waiting for the day of judgment. So they're not resurrected. Okay, so that's why it says the rest of the dead did not come to life, meaning that they weren't resurrected. And it says Baruch, and set apart is the one having part in the first resurrection. The second death possesses no authority or power over these, and they shall be priests of Elohim and of the Messiah, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. Don't you know that we shall all be priests, men and women? There shall not be gender specific anymore. We shall all be priests. Now notice verse 7. "And when the 1,000 years have ended," this is after the 1,000 years, "Satan shall be released from his prison, and he shall go out to lead the nations astray, which are in the four corners of the earth." Now notice, when Satan is released after the 1,000 years, which means the seventh day is over, it starts all over, just like our week, right? Our week is over after 7 days. Then it goes back to the first day. Now we're not told, other than he's going to come out for a little while. Okay, it says that he shall be released for a little while. Now, this little while, this period that he's released from his prison, it might be 1,000 years, it might be 2,000 years, it might be 3,000 years. We're not told specifically. But what we do know, because remember it says here, where is it here? And after, okay, so let me back up. "And he threw him," meaning this angel, "threw Satan into the pit of the deep." He's not in the lake of fire. He's in the same place of this abyss where he is going to come up out of the pit, okay? "And shut him up and set a seal on him, so that he should lead the nations no more astray until the 1,000 years were ended. And after that he shall be released for a little while." This little while, no one knows how long this little while is. We do know that he's not going to be able to tempt them, like if he just comes out tomorrow and then 1 week later everybody that we're ruling and reigning over, because again, we are part of the first resurrection. We are now immortals. So these people that we are going to be ruling and reigning over as priests, they're going to be in our physical bodies. So they're going to be getting old. They're not going to be immortal, but they're going to be tested. They're going to be tempted. But they won't be tempted until Satan is released. So for 1,000 years, many people are going to be living like before the flood of Noah. They're going to be living 600, 800, 900 years. Okay? That's why in the book of Isaiah it says that a 100-year-old person will be considered a child at that time. This is talking about the millennial reign. These are people that will be ruling and reigning over. Okay? But when the 1,000 years is over, Satan has been released, and he's going to go out to lead or deceive the nations again to the four corners of the earth. Again, we don't know how long it's going to take for him to deceive all these nations that he's going to deceive, the ones that we are ruling and reigning over. Not all of them are going to be deceived, but just like each one of us, we all are individuals. Excuse me, we all have a choice. Let me put this puzzle in for TT. We all have a choice to make. We can either follow and obey the Messiah, or we can disobey him and rebel. So these people are going to have the same thing. They're going to be the third group of people to be tested. The first group of people who were tested was the angels. Hence, a third of them fell. They followed Satan. The second group that's being tested is you and me and all those since Adam. And the third group is this one here. During the 1,000-year reign of the millennial reign and after. So we know they're going to be tempted by Satan after the 1,000 years. They're also going to have a choice. And here it is, the Messiah and his kingdom is here on the earth, and they're still going to rebel. There's going to be people, not all of them, but there's still going to be a majority of them that's going to rebel, and they're going to be in cahoots with Satan. And so it says Gog and Magog to gather them together for battle, whose number is as the sand of the sea. This is the war of Gog and Magog, not this that's going on right now as these Christian preachers and teachers are teaching. The Gog and Magog war comes at the end of the 1,000 years, sometime after the 1,000 years, not before. And it says that they came over the earth, okay, and surrounded the camp of the set apart ones. That's when you and I, this is talking about us, they're going to come around the beloved city, Jerusalem, because that's going to be our headquarters. They're going to try to come and attack us. Satan is going to be leading that army for the second time. And they're going to try to come at us, but they're not going to work, because it says, and fire came down from Elohim out of the heaven, and it consumed them. It consumed the whole army that came against us, that tried to take over the city of Jerusalem. And it says, and the devil who led them astray was thrown into the lake of fire. That's when he goes, because the false Messiah and the false prophet, they were the first ones to go. They were the first ones to be thrown into the lake of fire. Right here it says, and the beast was seized, and with him the false prophet who worked signs in the presence, by which he led astray those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. The two were thrown alive into the lake of fire, burning with sulfur, and the rest were killed with the sword which came from the mouth of him, our Messiah, and who sat on the horse, and all the birds were filled with their flesh. Again, symbolically speaking, this is us who followed him on our white horses along with him. Like it says here, and the armies in the heaven, you and me, dressed in fine linen, white and clean, followed the Messiah on white horses. And so they are the ones that's going to be thrown into the lake of fire, and then Satan is thrown into the lake of fire. And then it says, and I saw the dead, small and great, standing before the throne. This is Judgment Day. Books, plural, were opened, and another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged from what was written in the books, according to their works, because they didn't follow the law. We're going to be judged by our works. And the sea gave up the dead that were in it, and death and Sheol gave up the dead who were in them. And they were judged, each one according to his works. And death and Sheol were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death. So they're thrown into where Satan, the false prophet, and the false Messiah are. And it says, and if anyone was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. This is what we don't want. And this is what Christianity is getting ready to have all these people who follow this Roman religion with their Greek deity known as Jesus Christos. Again, I'm not saying it. The scripture is saying this. They have been taught the lawless needs or the lawless deeds. They are not following the truth. They're not keeping his commandments. And if any of you are not keeping his commandments and have the testimony of the Messiah, Yahusha, you too shall be thrown into this lake of fire. Your name will not be found written in the book of life. He will erase your name from the book of life. It's a scary thought. Very scary.